You should be, man. And you should be proud of the stand you took for the orcas because they're a really good species.
Oh boy, I know. Oh, heart goes out to them.
Yeah, you know, you probably heard, but Seaworld came under a lot of controversy.
I watched every inch of that. I catch every little bit of interest, and they're dying off. You know.
Yeah.
Shipping lines, change of water temperature, their feed supply, salmon, all of these things are making it really tough for those guys to survive.
Yeah, I've always said, and you would probably agree with this, I think the reason why the orcas attacked people at SeaWorld was because of the mental health they were dealing with of being captive.
They're being abused. Sorry, they're just being abused. And they're intelligent creatures. And they didn't like it, you know. And it was those things. Those were very rare incidents, by the way, too. So, and it's not even certain that they were literally attacking those people. They were just frustrated creatures out of their element, you know.
Yeah. It's a good thing that they released them back into the wild because that's where they belong.
Yeah, well, of course, the Keiko, when they released him, he lasted for a while, but he was so out of touch with his pod and so unused to dealing for himself. He'd been in a swimming pool for most of his life. He actually eventually died, which is really sad. You can't take a creature out of the Pacific Northwest and put him in a swimming pool. Sorry, you know, it's not going to work.
Yeah, for no reason. Yeah, terrible.
It is terrible.
It's terrible. What was if there any? What did the whaling industry? Did they give feedback or give you any trouble or give anybody in the film?
I'm not aware of any feedback at all. I mean, as far as I know, I don't know how much. The issue was Japanese whaling for the Japanese sushi market, and I have no knowledge of any direct kind of contact or abuse or threats or anything like that. I never experienced.
That's good. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
So
it's good to hear.
My next question after that is, what was working for the Warner Brothers company like, knowing how iconic they are?
Well, again, because it was an interesting situation. What I found, I made movies for 40 years. I made about 32 features. And what I found working in LA, in Hollywood, was if 2 or 3 of the principals involved in that production were people I knew or were friends of mine or respected me, I could probably get through things pretty quickly. And that was one of those things that happened. The producer I knew and admired me was a friend of mine. The chief executive at Warner Brothers had been my agent in a few years previously. And in fact, her father wrote Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. She was a big fan of my films. And then Dick Donner was a major political and creative force at Warner Brothers. So I really I had a great time, you know, and you know, I was, apart from everything else, like after making these indie movies in New Zealand for pennies, to be living in a swanky apartment in Vancouver for 11 months and getting so many per diems that I didn't know what to do with it was a pretty, and you know, having the money, like at one point, this is so unused to me, but I was in Vancouver and Keiko was in a facility in Oregon, and I said to Warner Brothers, don't you think I think I should go and see Keiko, because I think if anyone asks me, you know, do you know Keiko, I want to be able to say, yes, I've met him, you know, because anyway, they just agreed. So they chartered a prop jet plane for a day and flew me to friggin' Oregon, and I spent a couple of hours with Keiko and flew me home again. I mean, holy crap, I couldn't do that in New Zealand with a $300,000 budget movie, you know, so it was kind of fun.
That's awesome, man. Like, when you worked with Warner Brothers, did you hear any stories from the past about past films, like animation or whatever?
No, because I never saw. I mean, the only times I saw Warner Brothers when I went for my first meeting there with the producer and some of the executives, and then later on when I screened the film for them, that's the only 2 times I even saw anybody there. I had nothing to do with them. I mean, yeah, you know, like I said, the only thing I was expecting was to get a phone call from them telling me to go home, and there was a plane ticket in my hotel room. So I had literally nothing to do with them. There was one funny story when we went to do a location survey. We had to look over quite a lot of that part of the Pacific Northwest because we were shooting in the bay and in the ocean, and then we were shooting in a river and we're shooting in a lake, and we had to go through and look at a lot of different locations, and it would have, a number of circumstances, in a vehicle, it would have probably taken about 5 days. And what they did was they hired this massive twin turbo helicopter. And I mean, this thing would just go vertically at like 100 miles an hour. It was ridiculous. And we did the whole thing in like 3 or 4 hours. We did our whole location survey in less than half a day, which is unheard of. But I remember it was quite funny. When I got back on the plane to fly back to LA, one of the producers was over talking to the guys at where the helicopter was. And he was there for about 20 minutes. And when he got back to the plane, I said to him, what was going on over there? And he said, oh, it was a bit embarrassing, really. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, when I asked them how much the chopper would cost, they said $2,500. And they said they charged us $10,500. And I asked them why. And they said, no, it's $2,500 an hour.
Oh, gosh.
And once again, for a guy who's been making these low budget movies in New Zealand for half his life, like, you don't even, I mean, that's a weak shoot. It was like, it's unbelievable to look at this. When you make these little indie movies, if you have an equipment breakdown or you have a storm or you lose 2 hours or 4 hours, you never get that back. You have to do that thing where you tear pages out of the script to get back on schedule. You know those stories. With those kinds of movies, they just add another week on, because they have the money. So I've never been used to working with those kinds of, resources.